The snowstorm had arrived without warning. One moment, the sky was a pale, listless gray. The next, it was a swirling mass of chaos. I had been hiking through the woods when it hit, miles away from the safety of my cabin. The wind screamed through the trees like a living thing, whipping snow into blinding sheets that obscured everything around me. I wrapped my coat tighter and trudged forward, each step sinking me deeper into the snow. It wasn't just the cold that gnawed at me, it was the sound. At first, I thought it was just the howling of the wind, but there was a rhythm to it, a cadence that felt almost intentional. A whisper slid through the air, soft yet piercing. It carried my name. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. The storm swallowed the sound almost immediately, but the echo lingered in my mind. I told myself it was just the wind, a trick of the storm, but as I pressed on, the whisper came again. Closer. The forest seemed to twist around me, the trees bending under the weight of the storm. Their skeletal branches clawed at the sky, shaking loose clumps of snow that fell like ash. The ground beneath my feet felt unstable, as if the storm were trying to pull me under. My compass was useless, its needle spinning wildly. Every direction looked the same, endless white, broken only by the dark silhouettes of trees. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and I began to feel them inside my head, vibrating through my skull. A shadow loomed in the distance, barely visible through the storm's fury. Relief flooded through me as I stumbled toward it. A cabin, shelter. But as I drew closer, my relief curdled into dread. The cabin was identical to mine. Every detail, right down to the chipped paint on the doorframe, was an exact replica. I hesitated, the wind biting at my exposed skin. Something about the place felt wrong, but the storm was relentless. I pushed open the door and stepped inside. The air was bitterly cold, colder than it should have been. The furniture was covered in a thin layer of frost, and the windows were completely frosted over, blocking any view of the outside. I lit a fire in the hearth, but the flames gave off no warmth. Shadows flickered and danced across the walls, moving in ways that didn't align with the fire's light. The whispers followed me inside, louder now, almost conversational. A chill ran down my spine as I noticed footprints in the snow leading into the cabin. They weren't mine. They were larger, heavier, and they stopped in the middle of the room. The air grew heavy, pressing down on me, and I felt the unmistakable sensation of being watched. The storm outside intensified, shaking the cabin's walls. The whispers converged into a single voice, low and guttural, speaking words I couldn't understand. I backed away from the center of the room, my breath visible in the freezing air. Then I saw it. A figure in the corner, its form barely distinguishable from the shadows. It didn't move, but its presence was suffocating. My legs trembled as I forced myself to turn away, only to find another figure standing by the window. I stumbled toward the door, but the storm surged as if alive, slamming it shut before I could escape. The whispers turned into laughter, a cruel, mocking sound that echoed through the cabin. The figures didn't move, but I could feel them closing in. Desperate, I ran upstairs, barricading myself in a bedroom. The walls pulsed with a faint, sickly light, and the frost spread rapidly, creeping toward me like an infestation. The storm's voice was inside the room now, calling my name with a mocking lilt. Through the frosted window, I saw the snow begin to rise. It wasn't falling anymore. It was lifting, swirling upward like smoke. Shapes formed in the storm, faceless and massive, watching me with unseen eyes. I broke through the barricade and ran down the stairs, the figures looming closer with every step. The cabin seemed to stretch and twist, the walls bending at impossible angles. The door was gone, replaced by a solid wall of ice. The storm's laughter reached a fever pitch as the frost crept up my legs, freezing me in place. My breath came in ragged gasps, each exhale forming ice crystals in the air. The cold was unbearable, piercing me to the core. And then just as quickly as it had started, the storm began to recede. The frost retreated, the figures faded, and the cabin returned to its normal shape. The door reappeared, slightly ajar, as if inviting me to leave. I didn't hesitate. I bolted outside, the storm now a distant murmur. The forest was still, the snow untouched except for a single path leading away. I followed it, my legs numb but determined. As dawn broke, the cabin disappeared into the storm's fading edge. The whispers were gone, replaced by the gentle rustle of wind through the trees. I collapsed in the snow, exhausted but alive. For a moment, I allowed myself to believe it was over. But as I lay there, I noticed something in the distance. Another storm, dark and churning, heading in my direction. The whispers started again, faint but growing stronger. I had escaped, but I knew the storm wasn't done with me. It never would be.